So I want to ask you a question that I haven't asked any Preston yet, but it's been something in the back of my mind. And that's that the Preston family history really does glorify the American Revolution era. You know, William Preston as this pioneer and a soldier and a servant to the foundation of the United States of America through military service, right? Um, but 2 generations later, his own grandson, I believe, leads efforts for Virginia to secede from the United States. Is there a contradiction there that you think, you have this noble past of the American Revolution, but then other members of your ancestors, seceded? They were traitors to the United States. So is there a contradiction there for you?
Absolutely. I mean, it's completely a contradiction, and those, what I think, and this of course is an opinion. I think that during the Revolution, the founders of the country, many of them slaveholders, recognized the threat of tyranny from England. And yet weren't really willing to let go of I guess vestiges. I don't know if that's the right word. Well, we'll just say the application of tyranny in their own way to another group of people. I believe that it was that they recognized still maybe as the ancient Greeks did that some people had rights and others did not. And so their use of the word tyranny was for their own part. They wanted freedom, but maybe they weren't ready for freedom for all. Even though the words that carried down through history, and I think the words at the time, for the war effort, very much promised freedom for all. And so I think there's some ironies here and some truths, some basic truths of history. I believe, there was probably some cynicism, and yet at the time there was a great enlightenment going on, and these notions of liberty were being entertained, and there was a belief in a fidelity to justice. This noblesse oblige. Maybe they weren't willing. They weren't Well, it's obvious they weren't willing to give up their power yet, but they talked like they were. And at the same time, they were very passionate about overthrowing the power in England. And maybe in some ways that was a recognition of their own darkness. It's interesting how that can be externalized. I'm speculating, but this is me. This is me living in my reality as a descendant of the Prestons. I honestly think, though, that at the heart of it, there was some belief in the myth. And ironically, I think that belief in the myth has held parts of American society accountable where otherwise it would not have been held accountable, and has helped to allow us to progress. Now, is there hypocrisy? Absolutely. Is it wrong? Absolutely. Was there injustice? Absolutely. How do you reconcile that? I don't know. I mean, you're a historian, you grapple with these things as well. But yes, moving on to the Civil War, do I see it as a contradiction? It's a contradiction to the basic value that was put forward in the Revolution. It's not a contradiction to the power that they held. And so I think those that did, including, the core of the Preston family, did betray the notion of liberty when they decided to secede from the Union. They did betray the notion of the project that was undertaken first by the Declaration of Independence and later by the Constitution. They adhered instead to what I think of as the original sin of our country, which is, the abuse of slavery and all the things surrounding it. And when they did that, they opened a door to other darknesses to follow in the 20th century. The fascist regimes in Europe pointed to the rhetoric of the self-entitled, aggrieved descendants of the slave owners who had created a Jim Crow system in the early 20th century in America. And they said, look what you did. This is what we are doing.
Not to mention the treatment of Native Americans, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. And then, of course, the genocidal treatment of Native Americans in the 19th century. That's a darkness that, in my opinion, it can't be erased. Hopefully it can be learned from. Ask a German today what they feel about Hitler, I don't think that running from that or trying to say that, no, my descendants didn't do wrong. I think that's I think that just dishonors any kind of fidelity to the notion of justice. And I think we have a responsibility to look back, with clear eyes and say, no, we cannot accept that. That was wrong. And even though it was my ancestor, this person betrayed, the notion of the founding of our country.